Back, guys, to the Stadium Drive Podcast. We have a very special guest on this afternoon. He is an author, YouTuber, world record holder, and ball hawking legend. He's gotten over 11,000 baseballs in his life. He is Zack Hample. What's going on?
What's up, guys? Great to be on with you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
So, what are you doing with your time right now? Being quarantined and distancing yourself. I know you made a TikTok and you said you weren't. Was that part of being bored?
I don't get bored even if I can't leave my house because I feel like I have endless things to do. It also helps to be quarantined with my lady friend here, so we've been spending a ton of time together.
Right.
But yeah, the whole TikTok thing, I was convinced I didn't want to do it for months. And I used that question in a Q&A video on YouTube. Are you on TikTok or can you make a TikTok? And I was like, no, I don't think so. But then a couple of my friends really made a good case for it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And after about 10 or 11 days, I just hit 100,000 followers on there. So the numbers are ridiculous. I almost don't believe that they're legit, but yeah, I guess I'll keep going with it.
What's TikTok? What's your TikToks consist of?
Oh,
I mean, I barely even understand it myself. I've certainly posted more TikToks than I've watched. It would probably help my game if I actually watched some, but I guess it's just like a video sharing social media app that has a gazillion users. I guess it's the biggest app in the world right now.
Oh, it's huge.
And most of the videos are under 15 seconds, but I guess you can post them up to a minute. And then the app is built in with music, so you can choose songs to play, and it's got a built-in video editor. You can add all kinds of effects and slow-mo and stickers and hashtags and then at people and write captions and text. So it's like a very glitzed up Insta story, but the stuff stays on there permanently, and it's easy to go viral, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Joe, you don't have TikTok?
I don't have TikTok.
I have TikTok. I don't have an account, but I just scroll when I get bored. You mentioned friends. How is Benny Bang Bang? How is he doing through all this?
Benny Bang Bang.
Yeah, man.
He's doing okay. I think he's about to be out of work, but his wife is getting a new job, evidently, that's starting now somehow. I guess she got hired before all this madness. So they're home together in Queens, and, different friends of mine. It's interesting to see how people have reacted to the news of the coronavirus. I know one guy who was telling me months ago, dude, this is going to get so bad in this country. You better stock up on food now, and you should leave New York City if you can. And I was like, yeah, okay, it might get bad. And then other friends of mine, even when it was clear to me that this was a serious thing, they were like, no, it's just hyped up, and it's just the flu, and I'll be fine if I get it. And I'm just sort of like, I'm somewhere in the middle. I just listen to the scientists and the experts. That's basically it. So I've been ahead of the curve, I think, more than a lot of my friends.
Yeah, that's pretty much me too. I'm right in the middle as well. Joe, you will actually like Benny Bang Bang because he is a huge Taylor Swift fan, just like yourself.
Wow.
Yes.
I love me some Taylor Swift.
Yes, I know. So you've answered this question 1.5 million times. But how did you start catching baseballs? How did all this start?
Let's make it 1.5 million plus one.
Let's do it.
So I first was aware of the fact that Major League Baseball was a thing when I was like 4 or 5 years old. I started watching on TV, and I saw right away that fans, spectators were going crazy trying to catch baseballs and then celebrating like crazy when they got them. And that left some kind of impression on me. And I took my glove to my first game ever. Like I showed up already knowing that I wanted to catch a ball, but I had no clue how to do it. So there were a lot of years of heartbreak and going home empty-handed. Went to my first game when I was 6, but I didn't get my first ball till I was 12. And even then it was just a toss-up during batting practice, but it was massively exciting for me.
Oh, yeah.
And I got hooked, and I don't know why I'm the weird one out of 10 million kids. I mean, how many kids watch baseball and get obsessed with it, but not everyone goes on to be a complete lunatic like I am. So, I mean, maybe some people would if they had more free time or if their parents weren't as strict or whatever, but For whatever reason, this is what reeled me in.
Yeah, Hudgens is like that. When I go to a baseball game with Hudgens, he makes me get there like 3 hours early before the game.
Yes, we are in South Georgia. We're about 3 hours south of Atlanta, so I'm a huge Braves fan. So I'm always up at Truist Park. I try to go 4 or 5 times a year, which isn't a lot compared to you, but yeah, every game I go to, I literally try to be the first person in line, and then I haul tail as fast as I can to left field and just start going to town.
You go in that shop house gate, early entry.
Yeah.
That's how to do it.
Yeah, man. We'll talk
left
about
field. Yeah, I was going to say left field seems like the spot to be in that stadium because right field, it's tough with the chop house. They have all those high tables and rows, which is good if it's empty, but you need a special ticket out there and blah, blah, blah. So interesting stadium for sure.
Yeah, it is. We'll talk a little bit about
what's your favorite stadium to go to?
Okay.
I love Camden Yards in Baltimore.
Okay.
That, along with Great American Ballpark, is really fun for me just from a sheer numbers perspective. And I loved Globe Life in Arlington, but that stadium closed down after last season, and now they got the new one set to open at some point, which is not going to be anything like the old one. So I think I'm down to 2 favorites at this point, Baltimore and Cincinnati, but Baltimore, for me, is the better stadium. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of your videos from Cincinnati, and it seems like you destroy it there. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so, every city, every major league city has one or more regulars who are really passionate about catching baseballs and often really good at it. And some cities have a handful, some cities have dozens, and I feel like San Francisco has hundreds just because of the way San Francisco is configured. And when Barry Bonds was setting all those records and hitting milestone home runs, it just made everybody a ball hawk. Yeah. But Cincinnati, I feel like the competition is picking up everywhere, but it's definitely a more chill stadium than some other places, just as in terms of the number of people that bring gloves and are really going for it. So it's still a hot spot for me.
Right. So in your collection or your count, you don't count minor league or spring training game balls, right?
Correct. But I have gotten some minor league and spring training baseballs at regular season games at major league stadiums if those balls get mixed in, and I do count those. But that's the one exception.
Yeah, I hear you. So
I got a question. What's the hardest stadium in your opinion to get a ball at?
I think Busch Stadium is one of the toughest because they only open 90 minutes early, which is absurd because the Cardinals are a great franchise, great baseball city. They probably average about 45,000 fans a game. Massive fan base. They can't even be bothered to open their stadium early enough for the hometown fans to see the Cardinals warm up. I think it's a terrible anti-fan policy. They need to change it. And as a result, you just get to see a teeny little portion of visitors BP. And for some reason, batting practice there always seems to start so early that even when you get in 90 minutes before first pitch, even the visitors are sometimes done. So between not having much BP, the huge crowds, and just the way the stadium is configured, it's very segmented. There's a lot of railings that block you from running laterally through the seats, and the bullpens are right in the power alleys. They swallow up a lot of home runs. So that's one of the toughest stadiums for me.
Huh. I hear you. That's kind of like Truist. When I go to Braves games, it seems like you don't really get to see the Braves take BP, really. It's usually the away team is – and I'm like, man, I wish they would open up just a little bit earlier so I can see the Braves. But
well, when I'm the commissioner of Major League Baseball, I'm going to make sure that every stadium opens at least 2.5 hours early.
Yes, that would be great. Just let people hang out in the stadium. I would love that.
Got to do it.
So you decided to end the streak last year. Why did you finally decide to end it, and how long did you struggle with that decision?
So, I'd gotten at least one baseball every game I went to for almost 26 years.
That's incredible.
More than 1,500 consecutive games with at least one ball. And I was just feeling a lot of pressure with that. I always felt like I could keep the streak going. I have enough tricks and strategies and methods for getting baseballs that even in the toughest circumstances, I felt like I would find a way. But sometimes it would take me all day to maneuver and work it. And maybe I just didn't want to waste hours going for one otherwise meaningless toss-up in the grand scheme of my collection just to preserve the streak, when I could have been going for game-used balls, or if I'm filming a YouTube video, touring the stadium, eating food, interacting with people. But instead I felt locked down to the seats to get that toss-up. You know, games when it might rain or when there's no batting practice, the day games that follow night games the players want to sleep in. And I don't know, I just found myself skipping games, not because I was afraid that I wouldn't get a ball, but because I just didn't want to be hassled with having to spend all that time. And as a result, I missed some game home run balls that I 100% would have caught, either because I didn't go to a game or because I was pulled away from the method of getting baseballs that I would have preferred, which was sitting in the outfield.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, I need to work the dugouts and get a toss-up. And then, of course, someone would hit a home run right to my spot in the bleachers, and I just wanted to scream. So it was actually an easy decision for me in terms of not feeling too much mental anguish about it. I feel great, as a matter of fact.
Right. Oh, yeah. Off the top of your head, can you think of a time when you were really trying to keep the streak going, but it was like coming to the game was coming to a close and you didn't have a ball yet? Let's see, how am I trying to say this?
Yeah, no, I do remember early on in the streak, I kept the streak going after a game ended.
Really?
I had 0 baseballs and the players were walking off the field, and some coach just pulled a ball out of his back pocket, tossed it up into the crowd, and I lunged for it. I kind of dove forward onto the dugout roof at Shea Stadium because it was thrown right to me, but I thought someone else might reach in front, so I was, reaching as far out as I could forward. And I remember at Yankee Stadium one time, Paul O'Neill played right field back in the 90s, and every game before the 9th inning, he'd throw his warm-up ball into the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And people would line up all the way from straightaway right field in that famous walkway where Jeffrey Mayer interfered with the ball, all the way from close to the bleachers, around the foul pole, and then down that slanted wall down the foul line in foul territory. There must have been like 100 people all lined up, all waving and screaming, and I didn't have a baseball, and somehow he just turned and threw it right to me. I don't think he knew me. I've never interacted with him. And I just remember thinking at the time, like, well, Jesus, that was pretty lucky.
Yeah.
So there have been some moments like that, and I don't really have to worry about it anymore.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's a lot of stress taking off of you, most definitely.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite baseball? I know you've got there's a ton, but do you have a favorite?
Yes, the last home run that the Mets ever hit at Shea Stadium. That's my favorite ball. I was a Mets fan growing up. Now I don't consider myself to be a fan of any one team. I just like the sport, and I root for individual players. But I had been to Shea hundreds of times. It was almost like my second home when I was growing up, and I never had gotten a home run ball there. I rarely sat in fair territory just because the configuration of the stadium was so dumb. And they opened up the bleachers the last couple weeks of the season where you didn't have to be part of a massive group. You were able to buy individual game tickets out there. So I took advantage. There was a big walkway, and it was so crowded that very last game. September 28th, 2008, I'll never forget it. Carlos Beltran, he's kind of a pariah now, but he was beloved then, and he was batting right-handed and launched one out in my direction. And I did make a pretty good play on it, as crowded as it was. And that's, my first and only game home run ever at Shea happened to be on the last game there, and it was the last one that the Mets hit. So that's my favorite ball.
Yeah.
Do you have a great white buffalo ball, a ball that just got away and is in your head all the time?
Well, Jeter's 3,000th hit, I could have / should have maybe caught it, because I was basically in that spot for his first at bat, and there were a couple empty seats right in the corner by the left field bullpen. at Yankee Stadium. And the security guard out there was cool with me, and he knew I didn't have a seat, but he's like, yeah, you can hang out here. Then the people showed up, and I left that spot, and then Jeter hit it basically right there after I was gone. And, it went into the first row of the bleachers up above. I don't know that I could have jumped and reached it. If I jumped, I know that my glove would have been within about 2 feet of that ball, because there's a little bit of space behind the back row where I could have been hanging out. And actually the guard told me later, he's like, you didn't have to leave when those people came. You could have just been standing behind the seats, which is the exact spot. And
Wow.
if I had been there, and if I had thought quickly enough to stand up on the back of the seat in the back row, then I definitely would have been able to reach Jeter's 3,000th hit, and I would have caught it. And I usually do think quickly because I'm good at this.
Yeah.
So that ball was definitely catchable. I mean, just imagine, if you think about how much everybody freaked out when I got Arod's 3,000th hit, imagine if I had gotten Jeter's and Arod's. I mean, like,
That would have been, yeah.
the universe would have imploded in a big black hole if that happened.
Yeah.
So that one really bugs me. And for every big home run that I've caught, there's 10 others that I coulda, shoulda. Oh, I was just in that spot, or I decided not to go to that game and I should have, or I went to this stadium instead of that stadium and I should have known that so-and-so was on a milestone. And yeah, there's a lot of balls like that really bother me, and they always will. But I can also think about the good ones that I've caught and always feel great about those.
Oh, most definitely. So speaking of the Arod 3,000th hit,
Yeah.
all right, you got a ton of hate. Which I don't get, which is crazy. But what were your emotions when you seen that baseball coming right for you? Now I know you didn't catch it, right? You actually looked down and it was like at your feet.
Well, as soon as he hit it, basically, my thought was like, holy shit, here it comes.
Yeah.
And I was just telling myself, like, don't mess it up. And I read the ball really well right away. I mean, I knew it was a home run, and I knew it was like exactly in my direction.
Right.
But I sensed that it was going to sail a little bit over my spot. I was in the third row at the time. So I tried to back up on the staircase. And in a normal game, a normal guy hitting that ball, batting practice, I'll catch it every time.
Yeah.
Because I'm good at judging them and I'm good at catching them. But everybody behind me, I guess maybe they sensed that it was falling short, so they were pushing down the stairs. And I moved back to the fourth row, and I tried to move back to the fifth row, but I just hit a wall of people. So I tried to jump at that point, and the ball did go a couple feet over my glove. And I thought I had lost the opportunity of a lifetime. And there was just such a pile of bodies. It looked like a fumble in an NFL game, right?
Yeah.
And I just gave up. It's like, I'm not going to jump in there. I mean, there were like a dozen people just going crazy. And you couldn't even see the ground. So it's like, I'm not going to just jump on someone for the sake of jumping on them.
Right.
So and they were maybe a row or two behind me because the ball went over my head. So I just kind of looked down at my feet, because sometimes weird things happen.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know what kind of weird pinball happened with that home run ball, but somehow it was just sitting on the step right next to my sneaker, not even rolling, and no one else even saw it. And
That's incredible.
Everybody's fighting and falling all over themselves, and I look down and the ball's sitting there. And I've watched that replay a zillion times in slow-mo, and I realized after the fact there was one other person who saw the ball on the ground, but I was in the fourth row and he was in the first row. So as I was reaching down with my hand to grab it, he was just starting to run up the stairs. So, if I took 2 seconds to grab it, he would have had it. And it's just, I don't believe in fate and karma. I think that's a bunch of nonsense. Like,
right.
if there's such a thing as fate, then, why do I waste my time flossing if it's all going to happen anyway,
Good point.
I think things just happen and we assign meaning to them. But that Arod ball really made me wonder, like, what is going on in the universe that I got this other opportunity and it happened to go in my favor. It's really strange.
Yeah, that is incredible. How long did you have the ball before you guys came to an agreement?
So I took the baseball home with me that night, which pissed everybody off. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, screw you. It's worth maybe $500,000. I have first of all, it's mine. And
Right.
secondly, why do I have to make a decision based on the timetable that you've assigned? So I took
agree.
it home to enjoy the moment and think about it. I could have definitely said fewer stupid, antagonizing things at the time, but I was pretty hyped up and,
Oh yeah.
Got caught up in the moment. I talked to the Yankees consistently that night and the next day. And within a couple of days, I had a meeting back at Yankee Stadium with the Yankees top brass, including Randy Levine, the Yankees president, and the director of this baseball charity that I'd been working with for a number of years called Pitch In for Baseball. And the Yankees were actually the ones that offered to donate to that charity because I had told them that I was going to keep the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And Randy Levine himself told me if it would help you decide what to do with the ball, the Yankees would consider making a sizable donation to your favorite charity. So that really got me thinking. So there was actually a deal in place within a few days,
Right.
but the Yankees then left town on an 8-day road trip. In order for me to give Arod the ball, Arod had to be there. I'm not just going to walk into an empty Yankee Stadium and put it in his locker,
Yeah.
So, yeah, we knew it was going to happen with a deal in place, but I just had to sit on it and not say anything because the Yankees wanted to wait and they wanted to be the ones to announce the press conference. And that week was pretty tough because I was getting dragged through the mud. And just one example, Forbes magazine or their website, Forbes.com, whatever, they ran a huge feature story titled something like "Memorabilia Leeches Are Ruining the Sport." And it was basically about me and how crappy I was and how selfish I was. I already had agreed at that point to give Arod the ball for nothing personally.
Yeah.
It was just so the charity could get money. And sure, the Yankees offered me a whole lot of stuff for it, but I mean, that was almost like a throw, and I didn't need all of that. So, and I couldn't even respond. I just had to sit there and take it. And it was pretty bad. Some of my friends told me that they actually saw death threats for me on Twitter.
It's terrible.
And, again, I said some stupid things, but I really didn't deserve the level of hostility and animosity that was flying around. And a lot of people took my side. Yankee fans were pissed off because I wasn't going to give Arod the ball, even though I was.
Yeah.
Fans of the other 29 teams thought I was the greatest person ever. Like, yeah, screw Arod. Like, we love you. Like, stick it to the Yankees. And I'm like, I don't want to stick it to anybody. Like, I know what I'm going to do, but just like, please let the process play out. Auction houses were falling over themselves, trying to get in touch with me, basically begging me to send the ball to their auctions because they wanted all the press and the attention. And people were accusing me of holding on to the ball to gain more fame or money. And I was just like, no, I just needed a couple days to think about it. I know what I'm doing. I'm trying to do something nice, and it's going to take a couple weeks for the process to play out. So it was nuts, really nuts.
Were you there for the Barry Bonds game when he broke the record?
I was not there for that. I feel like I got into the home run chasing game kind of late. I just always went for the most number of baseballs, no matter how I got them. So that meant focusing on batting practice and focusing on toss-ups and foul balls. And it's like, why sit in the outfield for 10 games and maybe get one home run if I can sit in foul territory and maybe get 1 or 2 foul balls during that time, or 3 or 4. So it's like, I feel like my priorities were messed up. And even though I knew what a big home run ball that was, I wasn't all about getting on an airplane and flying across the country trying to catch it. Now I absolutely would. And I'd bring my videographer, and whether or not I caught the ball, it would be a really cool video. But yeah, now I'm definitely more milestone home run minded.
Yeah.
Right.
How much research goes into it? Like, how much of it's research? How much, if it's just like luck? Like, how much studying do you do before the games?
I used to do a decent amount. There was a website, ESPN Home Run Tracker, where you could look up scatter plots for any hitter and any stadium year by year, and just basically see the clusters little dots on the map of where all the home runs landed, and you'd know where the hot spots were. And
You introduced me to that website, by the way, and I don't believe it's around
no,
anymore.
it is now defunct, unfortunately.
Yeah,
It
I
makes me
am
so sad.
bummed.
It was fun just to look at, even if you weren't trying to catch balls,
Yeah.
just from like a data nerding out about baseball standpoint. But
Yeah.
that website actually helped me catch Barry Bonds' 724th home run, because you could look at stadium diagrams and put in what they called range rings, where they'd put a little arc in the outfield and show you where 350 feet was, where 400 feet, where 450. And I remember I was out in San Diego when the Giants were there, and there was a place that I liked to stand, this walkway out in right field, but it was pretty deep. And I knew that it was a lot more crowded straight away and toward the foul pole. It was a shorter home run distance. It was harder, obviously, to hit baseballs that would reach that walkway out toward right center. But I remember looking at that website, looking at the range rings, and thinking like, oh, if I actually move farther away from the crowd to about here, that's still, I forget exactly what it was, but let's say like it's still only about 415, let's say. And, Bonds could certainly hit one that far. So I remember moving out that way with some confidence that I wasn't moving myself out of position. So it was definitely helpful. But at this point, I don't do any research except I keep an eye on the milestone trackers, and I see who's coming up on their 100th home run or their 1,000th RBI, or, you can just, there's all kinds of baseballs that a player might want back. It doesn't just have to be a 3,000th hit or a 500th home run. Yeah. Guys with no home runs, I try to keep an eye on them as well. And I always give the baseballs to the players who hit them. I think there's a perception that I don't, just because I held on to the Arod ball initially, but I've always given those baseballs to the guys. It's just fun to be the one to catch it and to meet them. And I usually ask for a signed bat in exchange, which teams are always happy to do. So, yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah. So you caught Mike Trout's first home run, but you didn't get anything when you met him, correct? You had to wait a little bit, right?
Yeah, I didn't ask for anything at the time other than just simply being the person to hand him the ball. And security didn't even want to let me do that. And They were like, oh, no, we can't. It's getaway day. They have to catch a flight. And I was like, okay, no problem. I'll just keep the ball. And then they were like, what? And so what do you know? I got to meet Mike Trout. So he actually gave me a baseball that he signed for me at the time, which was cool. I didn't ask for it. And I'm not a huge autograph collector. And then, of course, when Mike Trout turned into Mike Trout, every time I saw him do something else spectacular, I was like, man, I am an idiot. And I wish I had gotten something from him. And he was nice enough to have remembered me over the years. And I finally asked him one day, would it be possible to get a bat from you at some point? Like I regret never asking for it at the time. And he was like, yeah, man, I got you. And it took a year, and I don't blame him at all. He's busy and he plays across the country, and I just don't get to see him that often. And sometimes even when I do, it's at Yankee Stadium and security is strict and you can't get down near the dugout. So just based on the logistics of it, it took a year, but he remembered and he finally hooked it up. And that's one of my favorite baseball mementos. Usually my favorite things are the baseballs that I've caught, but, personalized, signed Mike Trout bat, I don't know, it doesn't really get much better than that.
Yeah, I agree. So let's see here. Most baseballs you've gotten in one game?
That would be 36. And I did it in Cincinnati on my birthday.
Really?
In 2011. Yeah, it was a September weeknight against the Cubs, and back then the Cubs weren't that good. They weren't really drawing all that well on the road, and it was empty, and I got in nice and early, and I just was dominating throughout the day. 36.
Wow.
Could have been 37. I'm still pissed off about that.
Really?
Yeah.
I've gotten 3 baseballs in one game, and I thought I was the coolest person ever.
That makes you about 1/12 as cool as I am, right?
Yeah.
Well, I've never gotten a baseball at a game.
I'm sorry. I feel your pain. I feel sorry for you.
Yeah, man.
But you know what? You got to stop complaining when he drags you, quote unquote, drags you early to games. You got to embrace it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
you just got to go out there and get it.
Get there early.
I have. You attended the first game at Truist, which was SunTrust, and I watched that video probably 10 times trying to learn where to get baseballs at in that stadium.
Wow. So I owe a thanks to you for my YouTube revenue. You
Yeah, man.
single-handedly are boosting my numbers.
Yeah, man. A couple pennies. Yeah.
I'll take
Maybe. Favorite ballpark food?
Ooh,
Well,
that's what I'm most interested in, the food.
my favorite ballpark food experience is just being in the Legends area at Yankee Stadium, because those tickets cost about $18 million. But once you're there, all the food is free and included. And I mean, they have desserts for miles, and they have a sushi area, and there's steak, and there's lobster for people who are into that, and just a whole wall of candy where you can literally just grab it by the handful and throw it in your backpack and nobody cares. So that's pretty fun. I mean, that's what America is all about, right? Excess.
Oh, yeah.
So that's like the pinnacle of it. But there's just so much good food now around stadiums, whereas when I was first going to games when I was in high school, it was crap. And I think San Francisco has amazing food. They have some of the healthiest options. They have that whole organic garden thing going in center field. And, Toronto, the Rogers Center, surprisingly has some – I mean, I say surprisingly just because people don't really name that when they're thinking about, like, what's the best stadium in baseball, or, like, they don't draw a ton of fans either. So, no disrespect to the Blue Jays, but it's just not usually on the tip of people's minds. But I've had some amazing food there that really stands out. So, yeah, I mean, I've eaten my way across Major League Baseball. I was even thinking of maybe doing a video of food highlights across the stadiums. I have all this time now with coronavirus, so all these video ideas that during the season, it's like I don't have time to dig through hard drives of footage, and because it can take 10 or 20 hours to put together a massive video like that if I'm talking about all 30 teams and I'm looking for B-roll and photos. But now I have the time to do that, so I might get into some stuff like that.
I hear you. So when you go on your road trips, what determines where you go, or is it just random? You just go, let's go to Baltimore these dates, and then, or do you try to plan it out?
I usually look at the calendar a month or two out and start to write down some cities and dates, but I usually don't book my flights until about 3 weeks out. If you wait much longer than that, the prices can go up. So I try to avoid seeing the Yankees on the road at all costs.
Right.
I try to avoid the Red Sox, the Dodgers, the Cubs, if possible the Cardinals. There was a while when I tried to avoid the Giants too. Now I'll probably be trying to avoid the Astros. The Astros are just lousy with taking batting practice anyway. It seems like half their guys skip it. So I just want to avoid big crowds. But on the other hand, games with the biggest crowds are often the most exciting games, and those are good to film for YouTube. But I have the most fun personally when I'm in an empty stadium and I can run around and choose whatever seat I want, within reason. I'm not trying to break the rules, but it's like if I buy a ticket in left field and right field is totally empty, they're probably not going to be mad if I go over there when Bryce Harper comes up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I try to avoid bobblehead giveaways. I try to avoid anything that's just going to draw a huge crowd. I remember back in the day, I don't know if you guys remember, Beanie Babies were a thing.
Yeah.
Like I would avoid – there would be people camped out starting at 6 a.m. in beach chairs outside of stadiums. Like the one game I ever went to at the Astrodome in Houston, of course it was Beanie Baby Day. And it was just such a disaster. There were like 50,000 fans. So I try to avoid all that noise. I try to find out which teams are using commemorative baseballs every year.
Yes.
And I will make an extra effort to go to those stadiums, not just for one game, but for at least 2 or 3. In case I don't get the special ball on day one,
Right.
I don't want to have to circle back with another flight and hotel stay. I'd rather just be out there for a few days in one shot. So, I try to plan it like that. I'm going to try to probably see the Angels more and more on the road just because I love Trout, and I caught his first home run and gave the ball to him. I still want to catch one that I can keep for myself.
Yeah.
So I'm more motivated to go see the Angels. But, I don't want to see the Angels if it's at a crappy stadium where it's hard to catch home runs. So I still have to think about that. I think about kids being out of school or when it's spring break and trying to, like when you're planning spring training, I try not to be down there when it's spring break because it's going to be twice as crowded, just stuff like that.
Hear you.
So there's a lot of thought that goes into it. And then sometimes it just all goes out the window at the last second if I switch up my plans.
I know you brought up the Astros earlier and how they skip batting practice, or it seems that way. Why take batting practice when you know what pitches are coming? I mean, why? You know what I mean?
It's cold in here. Wow. Well, I'm glad you said it because I don't need to get hate from Astros fans.
I know, right?
I did a whole video talking about how I felt about the Astros cheating scandal.
Seen it,
and, it sucks. They suck. I'm pissed. A lot of people are pissed. A lot of Astros fans are pissed. And a lot of Astros fans are like, I don't care, whatever. They won it and, like, deal with it. And that's fine. Everybody's welcome to have their own reaction. But, I almost feel like the season being delayed benefits the Astros more than anybody because they get to delay everybody's ire. But no, the delay of the season, it's not a good thing no matter how you slice and dice it. But it's so weird how this whole thing is playing out. And, baseball will survive and people will get over it eventually. They'll be getting less hate after a week and after a month and after a season and after a generation. But it's one of those things that's always going to stick with them in their reputation. So, I'd like to see people play the game honestly, basically. And I know that that's not realistic, but you're just not supposed to use technology to cheat.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think about the athletes that potentially got cut or that don't have a job right now due to the Astros cheating. A pitcher goes out there and gives up 12 runs. Like, you know what? Yeah, let's go ahead and send you down or something. Just things like that. I
remember hearing some stories about players who were just like right on the verge of making it in the majors, but then they ran into the Astros and it fell apart from there. That really sucks.
Yeah. So, Joe, you got a challenge for him, don't you?
Uh-oh.
I mean, if you ever want to go to a Braves game
or Tampa Bay, because we're smack dab in the middle.
Nobody wants to go to a Tampa Bay game. If you ever want to go to a Braves
Zach
game,
goes to the Tampa Bay's games.
You know what? That stadium gets a bad rap. They've actually improved it quite a bit. Really? I don't care for indoor baseball, and it's even worse when you can't open up the roof. But there's some actually pretty nice things about that stadium, and they actually have some really good food there as well.
That's one of the stadiums that you can go and you can basically sit anywhere, and there's nobody else there.
Well, the security guards there can get a little fussy.
Yeah.
And this is not what I'm going to say is not aimed specifically at the Rays, but I do get particularly annoyed when you're at a stadium that can hold 45,000 people, but the paid attendance is going to be about 11,000. And if you look at who's actually there, it's probably half of that. And you still have power tripping employees who are checking tickets and yelling at people, and you can't use the glove trick, even if it's like, I understand if teams don't want you picking up baseballs from the bullpen or whatever, but there are places like Marlins Park. There's just like a totally dead area behind the wall in right center field. There's no employees. There's no players back there. If a batting practice home run drops in the gap, my God, let the fans use some device and pick it up. It causes no harm. And, I just think that a lot of teams forget that baseball is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
So that's what annoys me. But I've had a great time at Rays games, and actually the staff has been extremely friendly to me there. The people in the front office have welcomed me, and I got to know the head of security actually the last couple of years, and he hooked it up. So yes, my experience there has been more, I guess, privileged, you could say, than maybe the average fan. But I see how things are run there, and I think Tropicana Field does get more crap than it deserves. People should give it a chance.
Yeah. Oddly enough, like I said, we are the same distance from here to Atlanta, from here to Tampa, pretty much, give or take 20 or 30 minutes. Oddly enough, every season I talk to my wife and I'm like, I want to go to a Rays game. I want to check out Tropicana Field, and I just never go. Maybe this year will be the year. Maybe, hopefully, if baseball comes back. So,
So
You've
yeah,
Anyways.
never been to the shop, huh?
Nah, never been.
I've been one.
You gotta get there at least once, even if it were the worst stadium ever, or whatever you think might be the worst stadium. A lot of people say Oakland is the worst stadium. So what?
Yeah.
You still got to go there. They play Major League Baseball. You know, it's
Yeah.
an interesting experience.
Come on, Hudgens.
I know.
Jeez.
I know.
All right, but yeah, if you want to go to a Braves game, I challenge you. I will catch a ball before you catch one.
Woo! And
Bold.
what? The loser has to buy the other a nice concession item.
Ooh,
Sure.
I like that.
Yeah, like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Might have to take you up on that.
Okay.
Ooh, yeah. Let us know when the season comes back. Hopefully, cross our fingers.
Yeah.
We can
Yeah.
try to set that up. That should do it. I thought I had one more question, but I've lost it. I don't know.
You lost it like I lost Jeter's 3,000th hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I could not
These things happen.
imagine. But all right, Zach, we appreciate you jumping on. We've had fun. Hopefully the season will get back sooner rather than later. And we can get together to some and go to some baseball games.
I agree, man. And, you know, if people actually listen to the experts and take the social distancing seriously, whether or not you believe it, listen to the experts because that's what they're saying. And if you want baseball back sooner, do what they're telling you.
Right. I just thought of this last question. Last question, I'm going to let you
Do
go.
it, man.
How chaotic are home run derbies? I know you've been to a ton.
Oh, they're nuts because it's just basically like 5 hours of batting practice.
Yeah.
Because you have actual batting practice before the derby when every all-star position player is taking BP, and then the derby itself is basically glorified BP. So it's like 5 hours of batting practice in a totally packed stadium. And everybody is there to catch a ball. Everybody brings their glove. Everybody's standing up. And it's just nuts. Like you don't really have much of an advantage over anybody by getting there early or bringing your glove or being athletic because, like, yeah, everybody's just so hyped up. So there's a lot of luck involved. I try to do a lot of research and planning and scheming about the best places to go, but security can be really strict. I've had security guards check tickets in the outfield during batting practice for the home run derby where you can't even go and I remember in Phoenix when the All-Star festivities went to Chase Field during batting practice, they not only checked your ticket to get into your section in left field, they made you go to your ticketed row during batting practice.
Wow.
Which was so dumb and unnecessary. And I was going to be screwed. But thankfully, there was a guy with front row tickets who recognized me. And he's like, hey, man, you come down here with me. If they ask for your ticket, we'll just show them mine. And, you know, I got a bunch of toss-ups down there. But it's nuts. So, yeah, home run derbies, it's like it's a whole nother level of chaos that no one is – like if you haven't been to a derby and you've only seen it on TV, you think you might know what it's going to be like. You don't know. It's
Really?
bonkers.
Wow. I'll have to get to a derby.
Do it.
But all right, man, we appreciate your time. And like I said, hopefully we can get to some baseball games soon and stay safe out there.
Hey, same to you guys and same to everybody listening. You know, be smart, stay safe, and we'll get some baseball on the flip side of all this nuttiness.
Yes, sir. All righty.
Thanks,
I
Zach.
appreciate it.
All righty.
See you, man.
Later.